Hello, and welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, the weekly bridge to the future of the piano tech community. I'm David Anderson.
And I'm Ethan Janney. And we're here to ask great questions, and then we'll shut up and listen to some of the authorities, experts, and most outstanding personalities in our little world of pianos.
So, put on your best set of headphones, and let's get started.
I'll make an introduction to our guest, who you might have heard of before, a young man named Steve Brady. But yeah, I'll introduce him if you're not familiar with this fellow.
Ethan?
Yeah, Carl. Welcome, Carl.
Can I say a word before we start?
You can definitely say a word before we start. Yeah. Steve and I were talking beforehand, and we'll be saying some words probably at the end as well, but you're welcome to. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say this because I was going to put a link in.
Go for it.
Greetings to all of you. Many of you probably do not know, but host of this show, David Anderson, has been very sick for quite some time. He's been battling Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it has taken a turn for the worse. He's in very bad shape. He's returned home for hospice care yesterday, and thankfully his family and his wife are incredibly attentive to him. But I'm going to put a link in the chat for a GoFundMe that his wife's daughter started for him yesterday. They're getting extra nursing help and all of these things, and anything that anyone can contribute will be very appreciated. So I'll leave it to Ethan and Steve if they want to make any further remarks. But this is a sad day in Mudville, really is. And he's been so great to so many of us. That's all I wanted to say, Ethan.
Thank you so much for sharing, Carl. And I'll hold on to that link. I mean, put it in the chat now, but also we'll put it in at the end just so people have more than one chance to check that out. And I think it would be great at the end of this session. We'll take a minute. We'll go over a little bit, and we'll take a minute for anybody really that would like to just say something to David. Send a message. So you can come up on screen or audio or whatever at the end of the session to just send him your best thoughts and wishes. And I'll keep the recording of that and make sure that it gets to him ASAP. I'll send it over as soon as it's downloaded. And I'm sure that he and his family will really appreciate that. So, speaking of recording, I didn't start recording as my backup yet, so I will get that going. And then we'll jump into the session. Thank you, Carl, for that. Okay, so welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. Again, this is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. We bring you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more about that program at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And on today's program, we're going to be featuring Steve Brady. And he's a really cool fellow. He's been here a few times. And I'll give a quick bio on him just to remind you what he's been up to. Steve's played the piano since the age of 8. After receiving an AS degree in piano tech from BYU, he began his career as a piano tech in the Phoenix area. He later served as a head piano technician at the University of Washington in Seattle for 25 years. Currently, the most highly awarded piano technician in the Pacific Northwest, Steve received the PTG Member of Note Award in 1996, was inducted into PTG Hall of Fame 2012, 2016. He received his profession's highest honor, the Golden Tuning Hammer. Steve understands what a piano needs to make it play and sound like the instrument of your dreams. That is probably a lot to live up to there, Steve.
You took off my website, meant to appeal to prospective clients.
Of course, yeah.
probably a lot less interesting to piano technicians. But I'm really honored to be here, happy to be here. We're coming out of a very dark time with the pandemic and everything. It seems to be easing up now. And I'm hoping things can get back to some sort of normalcy before too long. I don't have a big presentation today. I did bring photos of some cool tools that are that some of you may not have seen before. You may have, but I find them all really helpful. And I could start with that, and then we could go into some Q&A if that works for everyone.
Yeah, and speak now or forever hold your peace. But I think that would be a great plan. We'll dive into those tools, and if you've got any questions or thoughts, you can start putting them in the chat earlier, and we'll jump into conversation later. I know Steve did a great lecture on damper work for us recently too. Any afterthought questions on that are welcome as well.
Okay, so first of all, and I'm going to get into a share screen mode.
I'm going to have to give you access. Give me 1 second here. Okay, you're good to go.
Okay, this is a tool. I did a masterclass a couple of years ago, and this is one of the tools I shared, which I thought that maybe a lot of people were already using this, but I've found out since then that maybe that's not true. I've found that some people, when they have a broken string to replace in a piano, will just back the tuning pin out 3 turns and stick the end of the wire in and then coil it up. That's how I did it for the first probably 10 years of my career, until the brilliant mind of Bill Spurlock came up with this wonderful idea. So I'm going to share screen now and get over to some photos. And so here's the thing. How's this? Okay, if you already pre-coil the wire before you put it on the tuning pin, that's great. That way you only have to back the tuning pin out by about a half a turn. But if you're going to do that, you need to carry a dummy tuning pin, right, and a tuning pin crank. So Bill's idea, which is just brilliant, was to take a piece of 1/4-inch brass rod and cut it to length, something about like that. Now I'm starting this with a triangular file just to notch it, and then let's see if I can find the next photo. How do I do this? Okay. And then I take a hacksaw and just cut the thing to length. Now I take it to my grinder and kind of round off the rough edges. And so I end up with something that looks like this, and I've rounded one end of it. Then I take it to my drill press, and this is a drill press vise. I mark it with a hard, I guess you would call this a center punch, just so that the drill bit won't just slide off when I start drilling it. Leave a little dimple like that. And then go ahead and drill a hole through it. The hole needs to be, big enough to accommodate a fairly large wire, but it doesn't need to be huge, but you don't want to make it too small either. And then when I've got that hole drilled, I set the thing vertical and just drill a dimple in the end. That makes this into a multi-purpose tool. So I use this for spacing keys at the balance rail pin. You can just set this dimple over the top of the pin and then, you know, knock it over. So this is how the tool looks when it's ready to use. You chuck it up into the combination handle. And to do that, you need, okay, there's a picture of the dimple. And the other end, when you're on the grinder, you want a bevel, so it'll fit into your combination handle. But this is so great. Number one, it's a multi-purpose tool. Number two, it replaces two things that you would have had to carry if you're going to do it the right way. And in my mind, the right way is to only back the tuning pin off a half turn and then pre-coil the wire, either on a dummy pin or on this tool. So this becomes the dummy pin, and you turn your 3 turns on it and then pry the becket out and just slip it right off. Since it's only 1/4 of an inch, it's small enough that the wire comes off pretty easily. So that's number one tool that, I mean, I've been using for a long time, but I'm not sure how many people are using this now. I know when Bill Spurlock first came out with this idea, a lot of us started using it, but I'm just not sure how that has gone since. But I highly recommend it. Okay, number 2, this is leveling keys. The traditional way to level keys on the bench is to take these clip-on leads, which means, number one, you really want to put on some kind of a glove so that you're not, you know, getting a lot of lead oxide on your skin. It can be very bad for you. So this is a great idea that I saw at a convention a few years ago. I can't even remember which convention or who was passing this around, but this idea has cut my key leveling time in half. So what we've got here is a long rod with approximately 800 or 900 fender washers going from end to end. So instead of laboriously putting a weight on each back check, and then if you're like me, I only have 52 weights anyway, so then I have to start moving them when I want to level the black keys. So you save a lot of time by just lifting this thing, and it is pretty heavy, and just laying it over the back ends of the keys in that little notch at the back end of the key. Here's a close-up. But the nice thing about this is these washers are a little bit loose on the rod so that they can easily slip up and down as needed. And so you get even weight across the whole keyboard. Here's what the end of it looks like. So I think this is a 5/16 brass rod that I just happen to have lying around in my shop. Then you take your taps and dies set, and you take a die and you thread the end of the rod and put a nut on it. You can put a lock washer or whatever you want, but I find it's really not necessary. But it's pretty easy to make. The biggest challenge was getting 800 or 900 fender washers. I had to go on Amazon several times, and you know, I would order like all the boxes of fender washers they would sell me. You do need to find washers where the hole is a little bit bigger than the rod, so that you have this freedom of motion. But this is I can't say enough about this. Literally, it's cut my key leveling time in half. So what I do is I put this on the back, and then I go through and and I have a straight edge on the front. I've gone back to using a straight edge, and I really like the straight edge that you can get from Wessel Nickel Gross, which has one side that's flat and the other side is crowned, so you can take your choice. So I lay it on the fronts, and then I determine what thickness of punching it's going to take to bring the keys up to level. I use key steps on the end keys to make sure that they don't move. But so then I take the punchings and I lay them over the balance rail pins. So I have, after I do a pass, I'll have all of these punchings laid out over the balance rail pins. You don't want to sneeze at this point because then all your work is for naught. But you can then lift the weight off and go through and put the punchings on. It usually takes me, I would say, 2 passes, maybe 3. If I'm doing a big job and really changing the level a whole lot. But after 2 or 3 passes, then I'm ready to do the final thing with the action stack in place. But for me, this has been just a great improvement in my shop work. Okay, the third thing I want to show is, let's see, where to go. I can get out of this now. This is a video of me showing off this vacuum cleaner, which I was very proud of for a long time.
We can't see the video yet. You're going to have to do a screen share, reshare the screen.
Oh, okay. Let me.
And at the bottom of the sharing box, there's a couple of check marks. You can do share computer sound if you didn't do that. Did you do that? Or do you need the sound or not?
I don't need the sound.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah, so here's, this is a vacuum cleaner that I've used for many years. And it's a great vacuum in that you can easily turn it from a vacuum to a blower. That's what I'm demonstrating here. And, there's other good things about it. It's very powerful. The bag, the filter bag is made out of fabric. So you don't have to keep putting paper filter bags in it. You just, when it gets full, you just pull it out and dump it in the trash. Having said all that, you can see one of the problems that I've always had with this vacuum cleaner, and that is this orange power cord that is about 2.5 miles long. And, number one, you have to hunt around for an outlet, but number two, getting it back is a major act. It seems to take forever. The cord does not want to cooperate. It's very stiff and unruly. So I started looking around for an improvement, at least for the lighter cleaning jobs. This is great if you're going to go in there and clean 1/8 of an inch of dust off of a soundboard and do a really deep cleaning job. I still carry this in the trunk of my car, but I've got something better now. So I'm going to get out of here, and it looks like I'm back. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. I found this on Amazon. This is the whole 9 yards. This is a cordless leaf blower / vacuum cleaner. And I love this tool. So here's the basic unit. So it's the lithium battery, 20-volt lithium battery. It's quite powerful. I have actually used it to blow the leaves off my front steps, and it works great. And if you want to use it as a leaf blower, there's an extension tube and then this nozzle that goes on the end. So it's long enough to be a leaf blower. But when I'm using it for pianos, I don't use the extension tube. I just put the nozzle on, and I can blow a soundboard off. Now, if there's too much dust for me to just go in and blow it off, I don't want to make a mess of their living room. So if it's not, just a disaster in terms of how much dust there is, I can still use this as a vacuum cleaner. So it comes with a filter bag, which goes on that end. And if you're going to use it as a vacuum cleaner, then you put the nozzle on this side where the air comes out. But I just love the convenience of this. It takes no time to put together. You don't have to plug it in. You don't have to wind up the cord afterwards. So once you've got the soundboard clean, I've found that after that, if I go back every 6 months or even every year, I can just blow the thing out. But if I do need to, dust around the tuning pins and stuff, I use it in vacuum cleaner mode first, and then in blower mode to blow the whole thing out. So that's a tool I'm really excited about. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
So now, questions.
Free flow.
Question.
Anybody have one? Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So two things. I'm going to expose myself here, but I'm actually curious. I still, to this day, do not make dummy coils when changing strings in the field.
Uh-huh.
I back the pin out three turns, 3.5 turns. I do it slowly, and then I put the thing on. And I follow pianos. I follow these pianos for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I have these strings are once they settle in, are as stable as every other string on the piano. What is the evidence? I know it makes sense that you don't want to turn it back and it would be good to only do, but is there actually any evidence that just replacing the string on the coil does harm to the stability of the new string?
I don't find it to be a stability issue. Now you work mostly on nice new Yamahas.
Yes.
Which have like the perfect tuning pin feel, right?
Right, it's true.
If it's a string you're replacing once, and then it's not going to cause a stability issue. It will make a noticeable difference in the tightness of the tuning pin, though. And so I don't know. For me, it just seems like better, especially if you're working on an older piano where, say, the tuning pins are already kind of marginal. It makes way more sense to wind the coils on a dummy pin or this tool.
Second thing, mm-hmm. I love that leaf blower. That's an incredible tool, but I actually use something even more portable. Oh. I carry a can of compressed air in my basic kit. And as I quickly use the Mark Perney's tools to take the lion's share of the dust off, and my little paintbrush to get between the tuning pins, and then I blow the remaining stuff out. Now, I know it's not quite as eco. I do have to buy a case of these from Amazon every couple of years, but it fits right in my basic tuning kit to have a can of compressed air.
How big is the can?
Here, let me show you. I buy a case of these for $48, and they last me a number of years. Mm-hmm. This is it. And you can do a number of pianos with one of these.
And that fits in your basic tuning kit?
Yeah, it goes in one of the pockets, one of the pockets in my basic kit.
It wouldn't fit in my basic tuning kit, but it's a great idea. I love it. And because
Carl, stop trying to upstage the guest here.
Oh, Carl, we go way back.
Just kidding.
No,
great resource.
You figure this vacuum cleaner leaf blower that I have probably cost over $100. I think it was about $120. I can't remember. So, $48 for several years worth of compressed air is not a bad deal. Yeah, to each his own. I love hearing these other ideas.
Compressed air is fun to have around, like in a can. There's lots of little things you can use it for. Mm-hmm. Most typically like cleaning off computer keyboards and things like that.
Right.
But a lot of piano stuff too, with all those nooks and crannies, and they usually have that. Those, Carl, have a little straw, right?
They have a little straw.
Right.
I usually don't use it though. I usually don't need to use the straw. It's just a quick thing between the tuning pins. You'd be amazed if you go with your paintbrush first and kind of loosen all the dust. It does a pretty darn good pass.
Right. Yeah, and what I do on that first pass is I use this tool in vacuum cleaner mode, and I'm using a paintbrush between the tuning pins, and just kind of go along, vacuum everything up, because especially if there's quite a bit of dust, I don't want to be blowing all of that all over the living room. So, Carl, do you make this a regular feature of every service call?
I don't, but I do it a lot. If it's really dusty, then I'm going to sell them a cleaning. I'm going to charge them. If it's just a little bit of dust, as you say, I've done it and I maintain it. It's something I throw in as a regular thing on good pianos. It takes me 5 minutes, honestly. It's a very quick thing to do, and I point it out to them. I tell them I did it, and then I do a little shtick where I say, it has no effect, but a piano that looks good sounds good. And I think there's something to the whole gestalt of the service. Making it look good, makes your tuning sound better.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've made it, before I got this new tool, I didn't do it at every single call because my gear was just too clunky. But if I knew I was going to have to do a soundboard cleaning, I would take it in. But now I take this little bag in every single time, and customers love it. I used it the other day, and this couple saw me doing it, and they were all over me afterwards to get the name of the tool and where I got it so that they could get one.
That's the last time you'll see them.
Probably. Okay.
We had a few questions here. Let's see. Yeah, thanks, Carl, for those resources. Appreciate it. Well, somebody asked you what was the brand of the cordless vacuum, and I guess probably both of those maybe both of those. I don't know. At least the last one.
This the cordless is called Chemo, but if you go on Amazon and look for cordless vacuum cleaners or cordless leaf blowers, you'll find there's a whole bunch. This is what I just happened to find and buy, but I'm not sure it's any better than any other.
Cool. Yeah, it's always good to know which one you're endorsing. Got the endorsement deal with that vacuum cleaner company, Let's see. Mark Campbell just had a comment. And okay, Ron Newman said, "Is this Bill Spurlock wire coiling tool available to buy anywhere?" I don't know if we know or if anybody in the audience knows. It seems like that's something I may have seen as something that you could buy. Like maybe they've come up with a product by this time, like on Shaft or Piano Tech or something.
Yeah, I don't know of anyone who's actually selling that tool, but it's so easy to make if you have a shop. Maybe I should make up a bunch, and I don't know. I could bring some to the convention.
Yeah.
But,
What do you think? 99.99?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is something I'm surprised that, say, Pianotech isn't making these and selling.
Probably really easy to get made through
Yeah.
some sort of a machine shop or something.
Right. Yeah.
Make it available. All right, let's see here. Bruce Gibson said he had issues with liquid coming out of these air compressed cans. Anybody have experience with that?
It's true. A little liquid comes out, and so lots of times I spray it kind of towards the plate area first, because then I can take my rag and it makes it easier to clean.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, Steve, I'm kind of change the topic a little bit, and we could bring it around anywhere else anybody else likes. But like, you're kind of in the process of sort of retiring. I don't know. You're kind of like you've passed along some of your clientele, right, to a wonderful younger person to pass the baton. Like, can we talk about what's life like? Are you just doing dancing all day, every day?
Oh, no. In fact, right now I'm working harder than I've worked in years because of the transition. It's kind of hard. The other thing is, here in Seattle, there seems to have been just this huge pent-up demand for piano service. I honestly, in 47, 48 years of doing this, I've never seen anything like it. And so, yes, I have an assistant, excellent young tuner who is doing a lot of our field service right now. But we're both booked into September, and our shop is booked into next year. I mean, I have a shop job actually booked for next summer and some at the first part of the year, but it's unprecedented for me. But I'm working hard, trying to get the transition going. My plan has been to stop doing field service at the end of the year. I know Carl thinks I'm just a youngster, but I turned 71 in March, and I've got certain health issues that make field service a little bit inconvenient. And so I'm ready. So the end of the year is what I've been planning on, but I'm even wondering maybe if I should quit the field service in October. But I want to keep working in the shop. I really love that, and I love the commute. It's very short. I just walk down the stairs, and it's really enjoyable work. But yeah. It's coming along.
So with the shop work, what do you enjoy the most? Just kind of rebuilding stuff, or what do you think you'll focus on, or what's your ideal future?
A lot of action rebuilds, and enjoy that a lot. Do some restringing, pin block replacement, soundboard repairs. I used to do soundboard replacement, but I've gotten rid of my equipment for that. I really don't have room in this shop to do that. Plus, I think it's the kind of thing where it's something you need to be doing several times a year to really keep your chops up at it. And, I did it enough to know how to do it and, do a good job. But it's something I don't want to do now.
Yeah, don't do what you don't want to do. That sounds like a good idea. What about with your protege there, your assistant tuner? Anything that you're noticing has been especially useful that you're kind of passing along in terms of knowledge or customer relationships or technical things? Anything jumping out? I know you've taught quite a number of people over the years. You even sort of have a little curriculum developed of sorts.
This is a little different. I've trained a number of people from scratch. 20 of my former students have become RPTs. my current assistant comes to me partially trained already. She came to me as just an excellent tuner, and she does concert tunings and tunes for the ballet and the opera and everything. But her technical skills kind of lagged behind. So we've spent all of our time working really in terms of teaching time on technical skills. And she passed her technical exam either just last month or early this month. So she'll be taking her tuning exam at the convention. But yeah, so we've worked some on the technical skills.
And how are you, and you don't have to go too deep into details if you don't want to, but like, how are you guys orchestrating it? Do you try to meet weekly, or is it just kind of like when it comes around to it, there's a big question, you kind of get together?
No, we have 2 regular shop days every week. Mondays and Fridays are shop days, and Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays she's out tuning. Plus, she does some on the weekends. I've been just letting customers self-schedule Thursdays for the past several months, past 6 months anyway. And trying to take Tuesdays and Wednesdays off, but that doesn't, right now, it's not working. I'm finding I'm having to book a lot of Tuesdays as well, just because things come up. But, I think once I retire, it'll be easier to just say no.
Yeah. And what is it that you want to maintain the relationship with that person and you don't want to let them down? Like, you crave the work, doing something to do, like what's making it appealing?
I think things right now are unusually busy, and I don't think that's going to last forever. I've seen enough business cycles that I know better. So I'm kind of taking the work while it's there and kind of relieving some of the pressure from my assistant, who otherwise would be she'd be going crazy.
And what are you doing with all your extra money? Are you putting it into Dogecoin or?
No, I'm completely ignorant about cyber currency. My son, my oldest son, I was having breakfast with him last week, and he has made a lot of money investing in a particular cyber currency. And he has made 100 times the amount he invested.
Holy cow.
And he invested a lot. So,
all right. Well, you don't have to worry about him now.
No, I don't have to. I never worry about him.
Never had to worry about him.
No, I'm just socking money away because, I think it's good to have a lot of savings.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah. Sorry to get too personal. Just thought it would be a funny question to ask there. I'm curious if you're traveling to because is it Argentine tango that you study and practice?
Oh,
is that
yeah.
Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Argentine tango.
And are you planning any travels to Argentina or?
Early on, I made 3 trips to Buenos Aires in a 2-year period and studied with masters down there. But that was quite a long time ago. I think my last trip to Argentina was over 10 years ago. So, I'm getting into DJing. I mean, this is really off topic, Ethan, but I've been DJing for almost the last 10 years and at these tango dances, and now I'm starting to DJ in other places. Like last weekend, I was in California DJing.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and I DJ here in Seattle a lot. In November, I'm going to DJ at a big tango festival in New Orleans.
Wow!
That's been fun. I'm in a tango band. I play the piano.
A band?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So we play live music at some of the dances.
Very cool. Yeah. we had a guest on Radio Hour. It's not tango, but he flamenco music, sort of like another Latin American music style. He's a jazz piano player. I'm trying to remember his name. I can't think of it right now. But we had him as a guest on Radio Hour.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Chano Dominguez. I don't know. Maybe you've met him.
In New York, right?
Yeah, he's in New York.
Yeah, right. No, he's actually played out here. He's incredible, and flamenco is that whole art form is incredible. My wife and I went to Spain. I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago, and got to see some authentic flamenco. At a flamenco club down there, and it was mind blowing.
Yeah, he does an incredible job of sort of mixing the style of jazz and flamenco. It's just kind of like this really seamless, really cool rhythmically and harmonically. It's awesome stuff. So it must be fun to play piano in a tango band. I think I had a friend who was pulling that off too, because tango typically has a what do you call it? The squeeze box, right? The accordion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I play a little bit of accordion, but I never got to tango level.
Specific type of accordion that is used traditionally in tango band is called a bandoneon, and it's a squeeze box. It doesn't have piano keys. It has buttons on both ends, and the interesting thing is, as you're squeezing it in, you hold down this one button. As you squeeze it in, it makes one pitch. As you pull it out, it makes a different pitch. So it's a very, very difficult instrument to learn.
Yeah, it's very counterintuitive when you're used to playing a typical, keyboard instrument. I've definitely tried it. Even the ones that have like 3 or 4 keys on them. It takes a lot of practice to get used to how that works going up and down in scales. Well, I'm thinking like on the spot here, I'm thinking of sort of expanding the breadth of what we do for our online conventions. And I might have to have you do like a tango DJ digital interlude for our next convention, if you're up for it. I think that'd be pretty fun. It looks like it's going to be mid-September. I think we're going to do like a Thursday one week, Friday the next week, and a Saturday the next week, just to give people time to work in between and do other stuff. But I'm also considering maybe getting some piano players involved, like maybe do a part of the convention that's geared towards players and a part of the convention that's geared towards like teachers, right? I feel like we can do something cool in bringing these communities together. So we'll see what happens with that.
I've got to say, speaking about future classes, I'm just going to come right out and say this, but the next class that I want to develop is going to be called Piano Technicians and Hearing Loss. One of the many reasons that I'm looking to retire is I have mild to moderate hearing loss, and I wear hearing aids in both ears. And I have for a few years, but this makes things kind of uncomfortable for me, because when I can't wear them when I'm tuning, and I don't need them when I'm tuning. I can still tune orally, but I like to wear earplugs. And so one awkward thing that I face in the field is the customer comes in, we chat, I start working, I take out my hearing aids, I put in the earplugs. And I can tune with the earplugs in because they're musicians' plugs. But then I'm tuning away, and the customer comes in and interrupts me while I'm tuning, and they ask me a question. Well, I pull out one of my earplugs, and sometimes I can hear them and understand them then, and sometimes I can't. Some people speak very, very softly and don't enunciate, what I found over the years was the percentage of people I had a problem hearing started going up and up and up. And, finally it was about 50% or 60%. So anyway, I want to develop a class on coping with hearing loss as a piano technician.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic. A big advocate of earplugs, and I lived in New York City, and I was studying biology and neuroscience at the time as well, and I actually had opportunity to like study how the ear works and look at how everything operates inside of there, and there's a few interesting things. So like as far as it was last time I checked on the research, hearing loss is not actually, people think that it's an age related thing. You just like lose your hearing as you get older. But if you look at the data and you look at people who live in areas where there's actually not a lot of loud noise, they don't necessarily have the same type of hearing loss that you would typically see. And hearing loss can be more common in urban areas, like areas where there's like, so walking around New York City when I was living there, I was constantly aware of like, wow, there's jackhammers and there's traffic, and you go down to the subway and it's documented that the sound of the subway coming in and out of the station is too much. Like it's too much, just even that, for the hearing. And so I used to actually walk around with earplugs, with a little, in a little package with the name of the floating piano factory, my tuning business on it. And I would look for people carrying musical instruments, because I figured that they were sort of that kind of the right crowd. And I'd say, hey, here's a free pair of earplugs. You can use them on the subway here. And, if you know anybody that needs a piano tuning. And pretty fruitless effort, to be honest. people even if they're aware, I put little stats on there so people would kind of think about their hearing. But people like on the subway, they'd have headphones playing music and then the sound around, right? And they're thinking that their headphones are acting like earplugs, like it's somehow dampening the outside sound, right?
Well, yeah, if they're noise canceling, maybe so.
Maybe, right, but a lot of them weren't. So
I wear when I fly, I have these noise canceling earbuds that are made by Bose, and they're really excellent. And I mean, they're just earbuds. They're not the over the ear kind, but they seal off the outside noise better than. Well, I've got a pair of these are supposed to be noise canceling headphones that I bought years ago. I think I paid $300 or $400 for them. They're not Bose. They're something else. And they're great, but they don't cancel that well. I mean, my Bose earbuds cancel way better. So, it pays to pay the money to get a good product. I think my hearing loss was partly hereditary. My father, I remember, even when he was in his 40s, was always saying, "Stop mumbling, stop mumbling," And for the longest time, I thought I was a mumbler, because my dad was always telling me this. But we know now that he had significant hearing loss, even in his 40s and 50s. I have a younger brother who got hearing aids in his 40s. I have been wearing them for about the past maybe 5 to 7 years. I can't remember exactly. Maybe 6 years. So I was lucky in that sense. But and I think that my hearing loss was accelerated by two specific concerts I went to a number of years ago. This was maybe 15 years ago. I went to a Bob Dylan concert at an outdoor venue, and I didn't bring any hearing protection. And I'll tell you, I was in pain through the whole thing. I had my fingers in my ears. It hurt so bad. That's how loud it was. And a few years later, I went to a Paul Simon concert, which you think, well, Paul, he's a mellow guy and everything. But I was sitting in the 8th row, and I had not brought any hearing protection, and that was painful.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of resources, and I'm seeing from the chat here that people sound like they would be interested in that class if you're putting it together. So sounds like you have a few votes. But yeah, even there's custom earplugs. Recently, I've found that something's been happening, which I feel like I have very little control over. And I think it may be the worst damage to my hearing of my entire life. And that is my 3-year-old son. He shrieks, he's got this, like, they have this shriek that they do, and they don't know. And you go, ow, that hurts. And they're like, what do you mean that hurts? Like, they have no concept of that. So every time he does it, I go, oh, there goes a little bit. Try to run and grab my earplugs or something.
And that brings up, there goes a little bit. That brings up an idea that my teacher, and this was back in the early 70s, one of the last lectures that he gave us, he said, you need to amortize your ears, your hearing. And I've really come to appreciate that. He said every tuning that you do, you will lose a minuscule amount of your hearing acuity. And it will take decades probably to really catch up with you, but it probably will, unless you have just extraordinary genes for hearing. So, it's a word to the wise to plan ahead for hearing loss and plan on what you're going to do about it. And I can't stress enough the importance of saving and planning for retirement, because you don't really know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's particularly important for piano technicians because we're kind of just independent, left to ourselves. We don't have a 401k typically from some sort of employer. I mean, that's university jobs, I suppose, are good for that. Yeah, I learned recently, which I didn't know about, and I was surprised for so many years about, I think it's called a self-employed 401k. If anybody doesn't know about it, I was just using an IRA as an investment vehicle, and the limits were like $6,000 a year or something. And when I was younger, that seemed like a lot of money to put away in a year. So I wasn't really like, and if that was the most I could put away, that's great. But yeah, the self-employed 401k plans for some reason seem a little bit less promoted or advertised, or I don't know what it is, but the limits are like up to $50,000-$60,000 depending on how much your income is, and you can put away quite a bit of it. There's not a limit on how much you can put away. So hopefully us piano techs will take advantage of stuff like that. All right. Anything else you wanted to check in on, or any questions that anybody had from the chat here? We could start to wrap things up. Anything? Okay. Yeah. Anything else, Steve?
I don't have anything else. No.
Okay. Well, I think what would be great to do what I mentioned earlier towards the beginning, and of course, Carl, we really appreciate you sharing that GoFundMe link. That's gonna help David's wife kind of deal with a lot of the stuff that she's dealing with. And just to recap for people who might be here a little bit later, have arrived a little bit later. David Anderson, he was battling cancer throughout all of last year, and he's doing pretty great. And then more recently, he's been having some issues with some things going on in his brain that they weren't sure how to fix, and things are not looking too good at the moment. So Carl gave us a link for GoFundMe campaigns that will be very helpful if you want to contribute to that. And on top of that, I think it would really be great. There's no pressure for anybody here, but if you want to chime in on video, audio, I'm really happy to bring you on and say something that we can send a message to David and his family, just to give him some good energy. I know he knows that we're thinking of him, and I know that this would be one of the most essential things, for him to be here. He would really love to be here. I think it helped him through his whole battle with cancer over the last year as just kind of a nice distraction, something to get excited about, a way to connect with people that he cares about. And we really appreciate just the extraordinary energy that he has given to all of us. For me, especially, over this past year, and then over even the past several years, in supporting the educational programs that I've been trying to put together and bring to a wider audience. But of course, even before that, he's just been the kind of guy that has been there for everyone. He's been one of the most popular instructors at all the conventions. And I think what I've always been impressed with about David is his willingness to be vulnerable and open and loving in the name of, helping others open up to that same possibility so that they can be a better piano technician, be a better person, have less fear in their life, have more joy, get rid of the voices in your head that tell you you're not good enough, and amplify the ones that tell you, you can take on anything. So I'm kind of starting here and I'd like to say something kind of addressing David, because I think if anybody wants to talk, it would be great to say, something specifically to David, and I'll get started. And if anybody else wants to chat, you can raise your digital hand, or you can wave a little bit, and I'll bring you up and you could say something. Steve would like to, so I'll say something.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say something real quick, and because I said I would. And then Steve, we'll bring you up and would love to hear something from you. I just want to say, David, I love you. We all, I know, love you that are here, and even the people that aren't in this Zoom session today. And, you've been on my mind very consistently over these past few weeks. Just been concerned about you, trying to send good energy, hoping the best. And I think the way it works is that you really never know how much of a positive effect that you have on people. But hopefully I can communicate that through this message that, it's been immense what you've been able to give me, and I've seen you give other people as a positive effect. So I hope that message finds you well, and thank you so much. And I'll hand it over to Steve here, and then anybody else, we'll go over time a little bit here. If more people have things to say, feel free. And if you want to just write a message in the chat, I can read it later if you're not feeling, super outgoing. But yeah, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I first met David several years ago, and the first thing he said to me when we met, we sat down for lunch with some other people. He said, "You are my inspiration. You are my hero," something like that. Well, I think inspiration is the one word that really sums David up. Well, the other one is love. But I found out later that David had a lot of people who were his heroes and his inspirations. And, it's so great to see the way that he became that to so many people. David is inspiration. He is love. David, I love you, brother.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Steve. Anybody else wanted to say anything? Or if you want to write something in the chat, I can just sort of convey the message. I'm happy to. And I'm just looking if I couldn't see you if you were waving your hand. Rick Overton. Awesome, Rick. You're unmuted, and I'll get you on the spotlight.
I met David more years ago than I can remember. And I'm not a technician. I'm at best an average salesperson. And as an owner of a store, sometimes life can be rather difficult. But he was always there to encourage me and teach me some values that I didn't know I had. And I was on one of your very first broadcasts when you first started your program. And I said, oh my God, these guys, they don't need to hear from me because they know more about, they've forgotten more about pianos than I'll ever know. And he said, you've got a message, tell it. And so David has been such an encouragement to me, and I can't even fathom what, I mean, thank you is not even close enough words to describe my admiration for David Anderson.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I appreciate that, Rick. Yeah. Just to piggyback on that, I think that was one of his has been one of his calling cards here, throughout the radio hour and before. And, maybe it's over the top a little bit, because he's very effusive and willing to kind of give people credit. And for whatever reason, that's not always easy to do. Whatever it is, maybe it feels a little bit vulnerable to compliment someone else. Maybe it can make us feel a little bit less important or awkward or uncomfortable. And I really appreciate that about David. It's very inspiring. Did anybody else have anything? I was going to read what Nancy wrote here. If you have something, I couldn't see you a moment ago, so feel free to wave in a minute, but I'm going to read what Nancy said. Nancy said, I'm grateful for the contact with David Anderson and Ethan. It's one of the most valuable aspects of this series for technique as well as philosophy and attitude and energy. I also appreciate the preservation of the knowledge and experience tucked away in our colleagues' brains. Thanks for sharing that, Nancy. Did anybody else want to send a message over to David?
Yes.
Is it Carl? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can always unmute yourselves because I can't always see everybody. And we'll go to Alan Eder in a minute. But yeah, go ahead.
That's all I wanted to say is Alan had his hands up.
Oh, that was Alan. Oh yeah, go ahead, Alan.
I just want to say, David, we all love you, brother. And I'm going to come see you just as soon as I can. We're going to have a nice long hang together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alan.
I'd just like to say, David, you have been a wonderful friend to me. And you were there and supported me when I was very ill and struggling myself. And really love you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. And yeah, you guys can unmute yourselves too if you just want to jump in. Sometimes it's not easy for me to see who's waving. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Elde Stewart said, I'll read this, David. God bless you. Thank you for everything. Much love to you. All right, folks, I'll make sure and pass this along. Oh, here's something else. Mark Steiger, David, we've never met other than on Radio Hour, but you've been an inspiration to me. You've taught me to be bad first, to have the courage to succeed. I'd hope to see you in person at the convention. Know that you are in my thoughts and prayers. Thanks so much for that, Mark. Pat Wilbur said thank you. Anything else from anyone want to share? All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Carl, you want to go ahead?
I'm just saying, waving goodbye.
Just saying goodbye.
Oh, yeah. Look, I just one other thing. I came to the radio show hour and because of David, I thought, oh, what do I have to contribute? And when David was teaching his master class on tuning, I went over to his house and, worked with him as he was getting his class together. And the thing about David is he's just always brings out, he brings out the best in people. He speaks to our better angels and you just can't have too much of that. Really, he's a very special person.
Much agreed. Thank you, Carl. Yeah, and again, he's inspired me with the folks, as I know also just as well as he does, that people have these gifts to share and bring to the table, with us and talk with us each week and come join us. But he's just really good at saying it and convincing them. And just so you all know, every week he gets on the phone, pretty much he'll give a call to the guest beforehand and kind of have a powwow with them and hype it up. And if it's not clear, a lot of folks are hesitant about coming and joining us, like we're saying, they might not feel like they have something, exciting or special to share. I mean, we all know after they've shared that, they have, but he makes them feel comfortable and makes them aware that they have something special to bring us. All right, everyone. Well, again, thank you so much for being here today. And Steve, a special thanks to you. It was a great session. Thanks for going off the rails a little bit with me and talking about tango and whatnot. We will, of course. So we'll see everybody again next week, and take care of yourselves. And thank you all much for co-creating this session every week with us. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Remember that you can catch us live online every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. Go to pianotechradio.com to register so you can interact live and ask questions of our guests.
See you next week.